Here. Dr. Schlepper.
Here.
At this time, I'd ask you to join me and face the flag to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Could I have a motion for the approval of the minutes from the August 14th and August 16th meetings, please?
A motion or a second?
A motion.
I'll make a motion.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Or either, whatever
Why
you
don't you
want.
just go ahead and make a motion. I'm feeling generous.
My motion, all mine.
And I'll second.
Thanks. Does anyone have any questions or comments? No. Ashley, please take the roll.
Mrs. Bros.
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel.
Yes.
Mrs. Garvey.
Yes.
Mrs. Miller.
Yes.
Dr. Schlepper.
Abstain.
At this point, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Catherine Garvey to introduce our student showcase for this evening.
So just a coincidence that Mrs. Garvey is in green, but so excited to be supporting you guys. So I want to introduce some students at the intermediate school, and they're going to tell us all about the Start with Hello program, which is near and dear to my heart because you guys may not know this, but my dad was in the military. And so I traveled a lot. I went to 8 or 9 different school districts by the time I graduated high school. So I was often the new kid that didn't know anybody, that desperately wanted to fit in and make new friends as quickly as possible. And so what I love about this program is it's encouraging students to really be thinking about the new students or the students that might be quieter or maybe just aren't known to you and maybe somebody you want to get to know a little bit better. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Howell, who will introduce the group and tell you a little bit more about this program.
He's got it.
I think it was. Good evening. Thanks for having us tonight. It's always a pleasure to come here, and whenever we get to do these kinds of showcases, it should never be about me. It should never be about our staff. It should always be about our kids. And this is no different. Start with Hello is no different. And for those of you that have been in our building or looked around our building this past week, everything that we've done is all about kids. If you look at our Start with Hello banners, if you look at the different activities that we have planned and set up, it's all about kids. And if we can teach them to be better to each other, when they leave here, they have a chance to change the world. And that's what it's really all about. So I'm going to have our 2 counselors, Mrs. Schloop and Mrs. Wolfgang, bring some students that they've been working with throughout the program. And I want you to hear firsthand from our students about what we've done so far this week and what we have planned for the remainder of the week.
I'm Mrs. Schloop. I'm the Tier 1 counselor at the intermediate school. And like Mr. House said, this isn't about me. So we're going to turn it over in just a minute to our kids, and they're going to show you some pictures and stuff from the week.
And I'm Mrs. Wolfgang. I do a lot of the Tier 2 work here as a school counselor. We love Start with Hello Week because we can have our own spin on it here at the intermediate school. It is a nationwide initiative that focuses on social isolation and how we can reach out to others and start with hello in a variety of ways. So we will turn it over to them.
Hello, I'm Amelia Edgerly. Hello, I'm Marianne Golden. Hello, my name is Jacob Cummins. Hi, I'm Jack Hanley. Hi, I'm Olivia Cummins.
And they are all in 6th grade. So they are experienced intermediate students. Mrs. Schloop and I are new, so we have relied on them a lot as well.
So as you can see on the board, these are the steps to start with Hello Week. So first, you see someone sitting alone. You reach out to help them, and you start by saying hello. Monday. is Start with Hello Week. We wear green to represent the Start with Hello Week. Signature, it's a Hello Week's signature color. Chains of links of kindness at lunch we created. Grade level of kindness changed by each making their own link. Grade level shared a kind of act that they have done for someone or something someone had done for them.
Crazy for Kindness, Crazy Socks Day. On Tuesday, which was yesterday, every student in the school, we tried to dress up in our craziest socks. And there was some crazy sock wear, you could say, that people had. Miss Campbell was the staff winner with her #2 pencil socks. And the student winner was Miss Klussman's class. Oh yeah, we also had conversation starters in the cafeteria. There were slips of cards with questions on them, and we'd go around the table asking each other questions that were on the cards, and this helped us get to know each other better.
So Wednesday was tie-dye day, and we chose tie-dye day because kindness ties us together and helps us bond with each other.
Tomorrow, everyone will be wearing their pajamas. We will also write a letter of gratitude to someone who is important to us.
On Friday, we have School Spirit Day because we are sharing the spirit of kindness. All of us students and staff members are going to wear our school colors, orange and black.
We had guidance lesson activities, and guidance, Miss Sloop and you could say Wolfgang, engaged us in the Start with Hello bingo. We had student-to-student interviews, and we got to do Chalk the Walk. If you didn't know what Chalk the Walk was, it's where every single 6th grade student, when they had guidance, they would go out on the front walkway to the school, and we would draw either a quote or a drawing inspiring kindness. There were some pretty interesting drawings or quotes.
In Spanish class, Profe Delgado is teaching us different introductions and greetings in Spanish.
In music, we started the class with prompts to get to know about our classmates.
So as you can see over there, all of our students made self-portraits of themselves, and it was really fun to work on and draw pictures of ourselves. In innovation, we got to design stickers, name tags for ourselves. And when Miss Packard printed them for us, and we got to design them all on our own.
So we asked the students to pick out why they start with hello, each of them individually, and they come up with their own unique responses.
I think it's important to start with hello because it helps to make new friends and include everyone. I think that Start with Hello Week helps us to learn more about our peers, and we get to do fun activities that bring CFIS together.
I think it is important to start with hello because you can create new friendships and make people feel more noticed and appreciated. Start with Hello Week at CFIS unites students and staff through fun activities and encourages everyone to be more mindful about being kind and including others every day. By changing our mindset, we can build a more inclusive school community.
My name is Jacob, and I believe in friendships because they can help us get through tough times, hard times, rough times. But they all can enlighten us. They can make us feel helped and loved. And anybody can really make a friendship with starting with one simple word: hello.
I think it's important to start with hello because you can make new friends and make people feel like they really belong. I feel good when I make new friends, and it creates a little challenge because sometimes saying hello takes courage. Just remember the littlest things like saying hello can brighten someone's day, and that's what Start with Hello Week is all about. Hello Week is a reminder to step out of my comfort zone and to meet new people and allow people to feel included. Hello Week is just not something we should do for just a week. It is something we should do every day of every week. We should always try to make people feel welcome. That is what we should do as kids and adults.
Like Mrs. Wolfgang said, we are just so proud of these kids. We're new here, and I just can't say enough wonderful things about these 5 kids and really all of the kids that we've gotten to work with since starting here. It has just been, they're wonderful. So you guys should be very proud of your intermediate school.
You guys, can you each tell me what your favorite part of the week?
My favorite part of the week was probably Crazy Socks Day. I had a classmate, James. He wore socks over his Crocs instead of inside. So you see, sock Crocs, he called it. So like you have Crocs.
Is he an invention convention?
James Hammerstone. I don't know.
I would say my favorite part of this week was probably creating the self-portraits because I really like to draw, and that was just something really fun that we did in art.
I think my favorite part of Start with Hello Week is any of the fun activities that we did.
My favorite part of Start with Hello Week is the spirit days because I think that they're just really fun.
I'm gonna have to go with Amelia. The spirit days are really fun, but I think just getting to know more people, sitting with people you don't know, and just like making new friends is really fun.
Pajama days tomorrow,
so we haven't
even gotten to pajama day.
Yeah, I'm excited for pajama day because I have to wake up really early tomorrow. So
So I was in a meeting this afternoon with Jennifer. How big is the DLT at this point? It's probably 45. About 45 people representing teachers and staff and some community members and some administration. And they were talking about different ways throughout the year that they're going to work on making sure that we're connected as a district and helping you guys also feel connected to students in other buildings. But you should be very proud because one of the ideas that was shared with the whole group that I was in was what you guys have done with the Start with Hello. And they were talking about maybe doing a day where the whole district wears green or something like that. But the whole district wearing green is great, but I also think sock idea is really cool. Anyway, thank you. It was fantastic.
pajama day for everybody.
Yes. So these meetings are really important. It's where we conduct the business about that we need to do to make sure that policies are in place to run the schools and that the schools have the funding that they need to keep the buildings and pay our teachers. That said, you probably have homework and dinner that you might want to get home to. So we completely understand if you want to sneak out the back while we continue with our meeting. Thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you to your parents for bringing you. Aw. All right, we will move along to district advisory reports. The first committee on the agenda is the athletic committee, which I am providing an update on. So the athletics committee has really functioned very much the way we were hoping with the committees when we set them up. The participants have been attending regularly and they've been asking good questions, which have led to bringing in district experts to help solve problems. So last year we addressed that supplementals weren't being fulfilled in the contract, perhaps because we didn't have the right ones anymore because the ones that we had been determined 10 years ago. So there was a collaborative conversation with around what do the teams look like and what kind of assistant coaches and coaches do they need? And all of that was then brought to the union negotiations and cleaned up in the contract. And now our coaching supplementals are very closely aligned with our students' athletic staffing needs. We then moved on to our athletic facilities are in need of some updating. Some from just a purely maintenance, mostly actually from just a purely maintenance perspective, but there's always an opportunity then to do something more and work with our support organizations who are very much eager to continue to support the district. And because of COVID, some of them have some money that they've raised that they're really excited to get behind some larger projects. So what's been the past is that the athletic facilities have been a part of the FIP, but that means that they're sort of further down on the list right now.
I just want to let everyone know that FIP is the Facilities Improvement Plan.
Sorry. The Facilities
We speak in
Improvement
acronyms a
Plan,
lot.
which the Facilities Committee puts together. And so Jennifer had the idea that we should consider pulling out the athletic facilities and having a separate prioritization. So they're still in the FIP from an overall district prioritization, but by pulling them out, we can begin to have conversations around what are the higher need priorities on the athletic facilities, and are there areas within those projects that boosters or the Ed Foundation or PTO or any of the support organizations might want to participate in. For example, the with the football stadium, which is historical, so there might be an opportunity for a community partnership in that project as well. But what we talked about in the meeting is the concessions on both home and visitors need to be addressed. The announcer box above the visitor side has some issues that need to be addressed. And you all know that the high school has now created this spirit group with the entrepreneur program. It's a little bit of spin-off similar to Tiger Perks. So there's opportunity for maybe the Ed Foundation or one of our other support organizations alongside boosters to get involved in helping fund some of those things. So it was a great conversation. Chris Wifter came and explained the whole facilities budgeting process and what has been put in place with the facilities, master planning and the FIP and all the rest of it to the group. And then they asked some questions, and we on our next meeting have invited Ryan Schmidt from TDA, who's the architect who does a tremendous amount of work for our district. Thank you, Ryan, to come and with Chris Wifter take everyone on a tour of the facilities so that they can see them and then bring that back to their organizations and membership and see if they'd be willing to participate in the project. So it's super exciting to see the support organizations, their interest in supporting our school, aligning so directly with the needs that have been identified within the district. So that was, did I miss anything?
But one thing to highlight is how the advisory councils work together. So you talked about facility and athletics and how they come together and that they work together to problem solve one issue, which was the athletic facilities and how we can break things apart and also itemize them as priorities on two separate lists. The other thing that happened today, which you'll, I'm sure, talk about in a moment, is intercouncil, which are the heads of all the support organizations. And today we found places where, for example, Music Lovers, who does the concession work, needs to come on that walkthrough.
Yes.
And so we're also able to say, okay, so intercouncil members, who is invested in these outdoor, if you will, facilities? So what other outdoor facilities are we going to be looking at on that day with athletic council? And then we invite those people to that walkthrough so that their leadership can also see and talk and maybe share some things that they're experiencing when they're using that concession stand that we might not see as an athletic council. So the whole purpose, a lot of people ask about those district advisory committees and are they in isolation or siloed, and they're not. So they're always able to work together.
All right, so that's it for the athletic committee. Moving on to the policy committee, Lori.
We talked a little bit about, again, thank you. We had a number of policies this week for first read, so thank you for taking time to get through all of those. I think we have maybe two more big groups that'll drop. This week was primarily Ashley's financial policies, so we got through those. A couple of things that we talked about in our work session that people might be interested in. We're doing first read on a new public participation policy, which adds an additional 15 minutes. We've talked about ways to, some districts restrict public participation to only things that are on the agenda so that people are coming to the meeting and they're prepared. And that way there's an advantage to that because then people know what's going to be discussed and we can have people at the meeting to speak to issues. We can have information available, but we also give people an opportunity to speak before we vote on something. But we didn't want to take away the opportunity to have people come and speak to something that is not on the agenda. So what we decided to do was to keep public participation exactly the same, but to add 15 minutes at the end that will be reserved for people to speak to things that are not on the agenda. So the first 30 minutes will be for agenda items. The last 15 minutes will be for items that are not on the agenda at the very end of the meeting. We talked about and we'll put crowdfunding and fundraising back into our work session and have for first read at the next meeting. And talked about also the new grant writing process that Dr. Penzarski and the support organizations put in place, which is not necessarily part of the fundraising or the crowd fundraising, but it needs to work it needs to work along with that. And it's designed to make sure that when funds are raised, they're raised in such a way that the district is prepared and has curriculum and is prepared to use the funds in the best way possible. And that there's ongoing support for those projects so that we don't have something funded that becomes stale or that we can't fund or that becomes obsolete in a short amount of time. So keep watching those folders. There'll be new, probably another 40 or so policies dropping in the next 3 weeks or so.
Good times.
Oh yeah, can't tell you how fun it is.
So Lori, just to chime in, the changes to public participation will be in effect once we have our second reading. Just so people know, yeah.
Nothing will change this year
Yeah.
or until we have second read, which will
read.
probably be November maybe.
Okay.
So nothing changes with public participation until then. Until then, we'll be having our normal 30 minutes. And as I said, we're not diminishing public participation. In fact, we're just providing more opportunity for people to come and speak.
All right, school safety committee.
The safety committee met last week. We established our bylaws. We also talked about establishing an executive committee that would handle the membership of the group. We talked about adding 1 or 2 students to the membership, which I think is a great idea. We also kind of gave an overview about the structure of the increased police presence that we've been talking about with having a school safety officer at each building. And then we also talked about the threat assessment protocols, which are being passed down from the state and different ways to communicate that to parents and students in the wider community, because the more people understand that process and know about it, kind of the safer we all are. So we were talking about maybe doing some sort of collaboration with the communications committee to make sure we're getting that out in a way that most people can reach it. So is that it? Did I forget anything? It's good. Okay.
All right, inner council was very productive. So it started with an update from Jennifer on the strategic plan and the report card and school safety committees, all of which you're familiar with, so I'm not going to go through all of that. And then different organizations weighed in with some updates that I will share with you. But to Jennifer's point about seeing the process really come together and the different committees serving to function to support the other committees as well. In the course of our conversation today in inner council, we really set the agenda for the rest of the year because there were conversations that happened. And Jennifer said, so for instance, the spirit space, people were interested in that, and our support organizations sometimes go through the makerspace to have work done, which the makerspace wants and is actually now charging back. It's created a cost center for, but So they were wondering what the relationship between the spirit store and the makerspace was going to be. So we're going to take a tour of that. And Jennifer asked that we have a list of equipment that they might be interested in purchasing, as well as some information on that for when we do that tour in November. So we put in place the new grant process, which worked very well from a district perspective, because now all the grants are being reviewed by people within the district to make sure they align with the strategic priorities. So it's either it goes through, it has that it was supported by a teacher, it goes to cabinet, or it goes to Jennifer, but the right person is looking at it and making sure that it's something that we want. Because to Lori's point, in the past, we've been given gifts which have been fantastic, but if they result in, say, staffing that we're not planning for, it's a gift that comes with an expense. And so we need to know that it aligns with where we're planning on spending money as well. The feedback was shared that sort of on the back end of that process, once the district gives approval and the organizations are selecting which one's going to support which, they're still communicating with each other through email. And so Jennifer suggested that Mike will come to the, hopefully she's told you already, that Mike will come to the November meeting and they can talk about the particular software that we're using and how to best then capture that their feedback on that side of the process on the software, if it needs to change or if it just, they just aren't taking advantage of it fully. And then that raised questions around a donation that was being given to the district and a piece of equipment, and the support organization thought that they should be buying the equipment directly. And so we had the conversation of no, all funds should be given to the district. The district should, through Ashley, should do the purchase agreement, should do the contracts, because it ultimately resides as property of the district, not the support organization, which led to a lot of the organizations around the table saying, I think we should maybe have more of a conversation around all of that. So Ashley is going to lead us through the December meeting on what she called, how do we stay out of trouble? So again, really very productive conversations. Community ed was reported on by Debs, who also represented music lovers, but community ed, she was saying, hold on, my notes on this are, I haven't had time to go home, and I've been appointed secretary for the group as well too. So I have to go home and organize them, but PTO and boosters are now offering, in conjunction with community ed, scholarships for students for back to school expenses, which can become expensive, and making sure that there's a process for families that would like additional financial support to go through. So that's fantastic. She talked about how she's collaborating with teacher and for summer programming. It was also just fun to see. She's very energized about it, and she was complimenting Jessica for the job that Jessica did bringing her on board. Then she spoke about music lovers, which is looking for a new president. Anyone? And that they've made some improvements to the process for concessions, which is done. I know Kathy Rohde takes a big role in all of that, but improvements that are lasting. Like I think they bought some new equipment, and so that's great. Safe Route, Stephanie reported out that things are being done a little bit differently with the walk to school, walk to town this year. On September 29th, it's going to be the day for the intermediate school, and they are going to go after, Catherine, you can help me if I mess this up. My understanding is their advisory is at the end of the day.
And that's different. Intermediate's the same as always.
Okay, sorry. All right. So middle school is going to have a field trip during advisory. That's right. During advisory. The 8th graders, it's their last period. So then they can have permission slips to be signed off to stay in town. No, yes, they have permission slips that they'll be able to stay in town. 7th graders, it's going to be first period. So they'll be going back, but it's being done more like a field trip. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, I mean, the incredible thing is the whole middle school will participate. And they'll do a historical scavenger hunt that's with our Historical Society volunteers. So they'll learn about Chagrin history. They're weaving it into the educational program and also the team building and advisory. So it's really cool because it's one of the first things they're doing together. So they're actually going to do a personality profile assessment and like learn about each other.
Oh, wow.
And then talk about how a team shouldn't be all one type of person and maybe invite new people with start with hello concepts into your team. So we're really excited about it this year.
That's great.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right, Ed Foundation. The Student Board for Ed Foundation is launching their Charleston Wrap fundraiser as well as their Boo Basket. They recently purchased a piece of equipment for our science wing that the science wing is very happy to have, and they were happy to donate. They also today stepped up and agreed to host a candidate night for the Board of Education candidates.
The boosters,
because-
then.
The Ed Foundation.
Oh, Ed Foundation, great.
Because PTO is not interested in doing it this year.
Mhm.
And my understanding is Hamlet's not doing it either. So there's one night, which would be the Geauga one. And because that draws from so many candidates, the board members get like a minute to speak. So we're working through a date right now.
That's
Looks
great.
like it'll be October 9th. They just kind of
Okay,
tentatively scheduled that the pack was open on the night.
okay.
So there will be one at Kenston High School on October 3rd in the evening, and the agenda is still being determined, but they'll have Kenston Board, Bainbridge trustees, and Chagrin Falls School Board candidates. So people will want to pencil that on their calendars, and then this is great.
That's the Geauga League. of
That's the
Women.
Geauga Women's, League of Women Voters. I don't know about Hamlet for sure yet. I think that might be still
Okay.
being determined, but that's great if boosters want to do it. I think that's really a
Ed
great
Foundation.
service. I'm sorry, Ed Foundation is doing it. That's
Yeah.
great.
It's fantastic. Let's see. Boosters, Amy gave an update on the turkey trot is really the thing that they're working for right now. But I should say that we had a meeting with her last week where we answered a lot of her questions about just the history of boosters and how they can better support the district moving forward. PTO, Shannon spoke about upcoming fundraisers, the middle school sloppy bowls, which is this weekend. And
On Friday,
on Friday.
homecoming.
Sorry, I'm trying to read.
Did they happen
Oh.
to say when the rummage sale drop off is? For I think it's, no, didn't come up. No. I don't know if they're doing that. It's like I'm really obsessed with this.
I know, I've
heard you
ask
I have a
multiple
lot of
people.
things to
Okay.
drop off.
It's usually late.
If you
like-
see Lori pulling up in the night.
the weekend. Garage
Yeah.
the weekend, like.
Yes, yes.
Is this coming weekend or
Yeah,
not?
this Saturday is
Yeah.
the garage.
Yeah, it's always tied to the garage.
Yeah, I
That's
thought it
the thing.
was.
I know.
They take them on Friday, though. They take them really late.
Yeah, but that's this weekend. It's not happening this.
Yeah, I haven't
Yeah.
heard about it.
It's not happening.
All right.
It's not. okay.
Sorry, you're gonna have to run.
Can't
that.
bring your
It's
rummage
travel.
here. You gotta do your own sale.
So PTO is in the middle of their membership drive and they recognize that one of the draws for their membership drive is the directory, and Join Our Class has issues that they've
Died.
moved away with.
Yeah.
So they are in the process of identifying a new directory and working with our director of technology to get the information that they need to get it all up and running. So that is more to come.
And they said that you were very, very helpful and they were thankful. Just so you know.
Jennifer's much nicer. Jared was there to talk about the theme team of the Chagrin Falls theme of Together, which kind of leads me to my participation in the district leadership team today, which was just this afternoon. So the theme for the district is Chagrin Falls Together. And what is so great about this theme is it really touches on our directional system and it captures parts of the strategic plan that we wanted to, begin working on as goals. So for instance, I was at DLT today, we split up into 3 groups, all of which fall under the second priority of student and staff well-being. but we split up into groups and people were allocated based on their interest and expertise. And there was one that was on PBIS, which is student support, that was led by Jen Banco. This one that's on student and staff well-being, which Jared led, and then one that's the theme team, which
That
is
I lead,
that Jennifer
not
leads,
today.
which is the CF Connect. I participated in the theme team and it was so great to see, first of all, we had community involvement in the meeting, which is a new thing that I think people are getting used to. And the sharing of ideas from both inside and outside of the district brings just a new layer of information sharing that's so powerful. But what was so rewarding for me to see was the sharing across buildings. And, you know, Gurney has implemented this, and the middle school is thinking about doing that. And they've laid out more specific ways to implement the theme each month. So like 1 month is like Together We Care, another month is Together We Shine. And they've been brainstorming different things that they can do, which is why the Start with Hello came up to do across the district. But the other thing that they're talking about doing, and they have done some of already, is buddy classes from among the buildings. So for our next meeting, Sarah Reed was going to work with Jared to figure out if we can group advisory periods from each of the buildings, although they're all called different things still, but advisory periods with, so for Gurney, it would be Gurney classes and make sure each parent has another that they can then basically be pals with all year, and breaking down the silos of having our buildings operate independently and having our students begin to feel more so as they are a part of the Chagrin Falls School District creates so many opportunities. It makes it easier for them to transition from building to building because it doesn't feel like as much of a disconnect. But it also, for the younger students, it gives them an opportunity to see what's ahead and the types of things that they might enjoy participating for. And for the older students, it gives them an opportunity to be leaders and help the younger students grow. I remember when the first invitation was given to seniors to go back to Gurney right before graduation, and the Gurney students lined the hall and clapped the seniors out. And I mean, seniors like welled up. I haven't been back in this building. I haven't seen my second grade teacher in 10 years like that. So that kind of connection across our buildings, I think, can really change the feel of our schools in a very powerful way. So all of that is a lot of work. That is.
The only other piece I'll add to the DLT that's new this year, we also had added classified staff. So where we just started with teachers and administrators last year, now we've added community and classified staff at the table, and hopefully getting the students soon.
And I had a community member follow up with me right after the meeting and say, I'm so excited to roll up my sleeves and help with the strategic resourcing part and the tie to the community. Can we get together so you can help me understand? But so there's a lot of great energy around all of these committees. And that wraps up our advisory reports, unless anyone else has anything to contribute. No. All right, at this point, I will turn the meeting over to Jennifer to provide a school achievement report. I should move, right? Thanks.
How many hours did it take? Let's see.
Fine. So just before we go through this, you're just going to see a lot of tidbits of information. But what I want you to know is that there were 2 press releases that will be available on the website if you want a more comprehensive story. You can also do searches on the Ohio Department of Education for all the background of how scores are calculated. And the same thing for US News and World Report. So you can go on and it would give you the detail behind all this data, because some of this is just data information. But if you want the nuts and bolts, those are your best resources. And I apologize if the agenda says report card and rankings, because we really try to avoid the word achievement, because we get achievement because we grow. And that's why this now says it's a inspiring all to grow and thrive presentation instead of a ranking and achievement presentation. So this one just gives you this is about the Ohio report card data on the left. This would be the performance index. The one thing that I can't show you that's really important is that the numbers, the highest score for performance index that you could achieve has actually gone down a little bit. I mean, it was much higher. And so those graphs are off just slightly. So you again, you have to go into the report to read what they were in the earlier years. But we're looking at 2023. So the highest possible points were 108.8, and we scored 109.2. So I'm still one of those people that don't know how you go above 100%, and I will stick to that. But we obviously are doing it, and we have the 4th highest in the state out of 607. We are not tied in any way this year. And then we're one of only 6 districts to score higher than 100%, which I don't still know how that's possible, but we'll do it we'll do it all year long. The next thing, oh, now it went crazy. Sorry, that's the end. We're done. I told you it was going to be quick and to go to the resources. I hit something really. Okay. So this is the same chart you saw last year. I'm actually just want to commend the state and the school districts within the state. Last year, the number I think was 7 districts in Ohio, or 6 districts in Ohio got 25 stars, 5 out of 5. And this year it's 75. So many schools made growth, and that's just really good for everyone. Yeah. But so this year we're one of 75 school districts to get the 5 out of 5. And these, when we say 5 out of 5, these are the components. And again, there are more than 5 components up here, or there's 5 components up here, but they're actually, if you look at the report card, there are 6 categories, because there's basically career readiness category that they're scoring but not counting yet. So I just want you, when you look, if you look online at the actual data, just know that some of the categories that they're posting information for are not counted in the categories that give you your stars, if that makes sense. So these are the 5 categories that you're getting stars in. And when you look at the report card data, you'll actually see they have the star and give the number. One other thing I'd just like to share with you is that you can also get specific school information, and they have their own set of stars. So you could go in that website and see stars for each school building. Now, what does that really mean? They have a system where if you have 1 star, 2 stars, 3 stars, I kind of feel like a TripAdvisor or a Bookings with all the stars. It's kind of in that light, if you will. But 5 stars, what it means is that we significantly exceeded state standards. And then you could just put in the phrase of which that would be. So this is academic achievement. And then I just picked 2, early literacy, K6 or K3, sorry. Oh my goodness, Mike, you're doing this to me on purpose. So here's just some of the scores for the schools, just to give you some rankings. Gurney Elementary had the 6th highest performance index in the state. The intermediate school was 2nd, and the middle school was also 2nd. if we keep going, we also, though, with these types of scores, what do we need to do? Where are we headed? How can we grow? And so the team met and we went through our goals and what we have planned for high quality learning experience this year and said, are we on track? Were there refinements that we need to make? And so you can see some of the things that we want to make sure that we're focused on this year. And if, like I said, if we need to redirect, we can do that. We're still working on our intervention programming for math students. We're also focusing upon growth for all students, including those who are already meeting or exceeding proficiency. So the way those performance index scores go up is the more that fall in the advanced or accelerated category, we get more points. So if they're at the proficient level, you just want students to keep moving up, keep growing. And so that's one of our things that we'll look at. We also look at the item analysis report to better understand what we need to adjust in instruction and how we need to design our instructional practices. But this is interesting. We want to look at our lower grades so that we can increase growth in our upper grades. What that means is we need to look backwards. And we learned that through the strategic planning process. So let's say that and I'm making this up, please. So making this up, this may not be true. Let's say we want to do growth in Algebra 1. We'll look at Algebra 1 data, but then we're going to break that down backwards. And we're going to look at 8th grade math. We're going to look at 7th grade math. We're going to look at 6th grade math and say, are there any data points that would cause us to have weakness in Algebra 1? And how could we strengthen that grade level, or what can we do instructionally to support and fulfill that gap so that as we get to Algebra 1, we'll see growth. And so those kinds of discussions are kind of new for us, but we're definitely looking at scores backwards. And then benchmark assessments, you kind of see as well. We need to identify areas of growth early in the school year so that it can inform instructional design and practices. And that's for the high school end of course exams. What can we do to grow that? This is the US News and World Report information. This one's even harder to understand how it's calculated. Lori is probably the strongest in that, if you want to get specific, but there's some data at the top. And then what I did at the bottom was just put the components of how that score is calculated. And these are public high schools. This would be high school only as well when you look through that. And again, we do the same kind of analysis, and we presented this at a work session and then briefly at a, it might have been another work session, but I thought it was a board meeting this summer of how we took looking at data for achievement and looking at data for growth and how the team shifted their mindset. And so this was some of the work they did and they applied it to that data. So you can see continue PD and support for AP teachers and AP classroom resources and AP exam prep. So US News and World Reports is heavy on AP, and they break it down like 3 or 4 different ways, and each category is weighted differently. And so we have to break down our data 3 or 4 different ways. And then the other thing we want to do this year is start running different scenarios through that calculator, if you will, and say, okay, if we do this, what's going to happen? And if we change this around, how does that impact everything? And we want what's best for our kids too. And CCP's in there, and you can see we're starting to grow the options of CCP. And how is that going to affect everything? And is that what's best for our kids? Is that what colleges are looking for? And so, for example, to our seniors who are interested in their first AP course, what should that AP course be? And do they have access? Like, are there limiting factors like prerequisites? And those are all the discussions that we really want to sit down this year. We've even got 5 years of data now to look at. We've put that all together. So we were sitting on my desk, our stacks of data points, and we just have to dig into all that. And then you can see depth of knowledge was a PD that was done here a couple years ago. And we saw a big spike in the performance on the AP tests. So the AP tests are ranked, you can score anywhere from a 1 to a 5. And we saw a significant growth to 3s in a lot of places. And so we want to go back and analyze, was that a result of the depth of knowledge work? And if so, has our staffing changed over the time? And do we need to go back and look at some of this training? Was that professional development? What was the impact? Is that a strategy we want to use to help grow both staff and students in those courses? So that was something we worked through just yesterday. We talked about the strategic plan and goals for this year a little bit, shared some little snippets of information. If you haven't seen this, you will. And it's kind of what guides all of our work. This is our directional system. The actual directional system is the orange, inspiring all to grow and thrive. Around it are the black circles that describe our organizational drivers, how we do the work. We connect, we create, we challenge. When you hear CF together, that's our theme. And every year, as we're putting together our goals and what we're going to do and the action steps, we pick a word of our directional system and we pick a driver. So our words this year are grow and connect. And we may keep those words as we work next year, or you can mix things up and change them around. So I just wanted to put that in there for you. Oh my goodness, I get ahead of myself all the time. One more time going backwards. These are the strategies. So as Sharon shared about the DLT, this is where they're working and what we're doing. So the one that the DLT specifically was working on was student and staff well-being. That's a social emotional piece. But when we're talking about the learning experiences and the increased agency over their learning, some of that is embedded in the PBIS work and some of that framework, because that's a framework piece that they were growing. So that was embedded a little bit in what they did. We also have another way that the districts are working through that, and that's the Ohio Personalized Learning Network. And now every building has a cohort working through that. And the communication strategy is clear, consistent understanding of programming and services. So one thing that I personally have been doing is making sure that our staff understands the directional system and the work that we're doing this year. And that even includes all of our classified staff. So I've already presented to custodial, grounds and maintenance. I've already presented to cafeteria, food service. And we're still working through every building, every classification of OPSI. And then today, for example, I reviewed with our intercouncil, which are the presidents of our organizations, and then whoever needs us to go to the actual support meetings. We'll just keep talking this through so that people understand how our strategic plan works and how we break it down each year to decide what we're focusing on and what we're prioritizing. And as all of this work has definitions so that we're clear on what we do, this is the CF together. And at the very bottom, we wanted to define the work because our themes only last 1 year, but they're embedded in our direction. So we just say, achieving our mission requires the power of the team. And you heard both Curtis and Catherine talk about that in what they're designing. You can hear it through and through. We believe that everyone has genius. Our culture embraces the unique gifts and talents of each individual and empowers all to contribute to student, staff, family, and community learning. Great things happen when we work together and put the team first. I heard Curtis say it right when he started, and even the guidance counselors, it's not about me. It's about the students. And so just to show you, if any of this interests you, and again, if you want to learn more, there's a category on the website. And if you click on that, it will take you to like in-depth papers and briefing reports. And for those of you that worked on the inquiry teams, you're twitching because you remember all that work, but you're able to look at it there. So I just wanted to share some celebrations with you tonight. And we have a lot to be proud of in our staff and our, that includes teachers, our support staff, our administrators for leading the direction, and obviously our students. They're just amazing, and our families for all of their support. It takes the community, and we're lucky that we have a strong one. So now I'm really done. I'm not going to go backwards. All I have.
Jennifer, I love that underscored in all of that was the concept that just because we are high achieving, and I think this might be the highest report card ranking we've
is.
had since I've been on the board. So congratulations to everybody in the district and our families and our students. But underscored with all of that is that we are continuing to grow. You know, you might have a student who is top of the class. We still want to find a way to grow that student every single year and make them even stronger, not only academically, but just, you know, as a good human being. So thanks for, you know, underscoring that in your presentation.
And we talked through the intercouncil today too, just to make sure people understand you know, why the connect, why the emphasis on that, and how, when we did the survey, we heard from, which went out to everyone's students, staff, parents, community, families. We heard
Closer.
heard-
Larry's glaring at you.
we heard stories. That when you ask people the question of like, what's had the meaningful impact on your education, whether it's students or people reflecting back, you know, 9 times out of 10, it was referring to a teacher who made an individual connection with the student and saw them and offered to something to them that made the work relevant to their life and like, you know, flip the switch on their desire to learn. And they felt supported, they felt seen, and that led to them being engaged. So I think people are starting to understand how everything comes together. Yeah.
And the only other thing I like to mention, because a couple of people are like, wow, you put this all together in 3 months, and that's not the truth. It's ironic. All of this has been going on for 18 months. We identified these focus areas. We identified this need to do this work, to elevate and grow everyone. And even those words, those were worked on 18 months ago. And this has been just continuing, and just happy that we're in the right direction and that this is really working. for our
Yeah,
school
I
district.
underscored that as well. Like, you know, student and staff wellness, we knew 18 months ago that there were cultural concerns that we wanted to address, and you know, they're part of this work and a part of the work that Jennifer does every day. We just keep working together and improving.
Yeah, and I just want to thank in particular the teachers, the students, the parents in the heavily tested grade bands. I mean, I think when you're having served on the curriculum committee, you don't realize how seriously everyone works to make this happen. And the test scores are, when we were talking to other districts, one of them referred to it as an autopsy, right? I mean, it's a thing you use to look back and see how it's been. And hopefully now it's something we're using to define places and areas of growth. But none of that diminishes the stress and the work that goes in to make this happen on that day, on those many days. I think in this building the most, actually, I think the most, and of course the teachers who work in K-2 to get them ready to be able to do those things. But it's a lot. And I know the students feel the pressure. I know the families, you know, cancel plans so the kids can get a good night's sleep. I know a lot of things go into this. So, you know, thank you to the community for making it happen. And I look forward to digging back into all those formulas for the exams. I did actually break down and feed them into ChatGPT because I couldn't, you know, it's just too much.
It's good stuff. It really is.
Yeah, it's
So
very
worth
interesting.
looking at. They worked very hard.
All right, moving along, this is the public participation part of our agenda. Is there anyone here to address the board?
There's no one signed up.
Okay, thank you. Moving along to consent agenda items, I move to approve consent agenda items 5.02 through 5.1. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions? Ashley, please take the roll.
Mrs. Bros,
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel,
Yes.
Mrs. Garvey.
Yes.
Mrs. Miller. Yes. Dr. Schlepper.
Yes.
Superintendent's recommendations, I move to approve superintendent's recommendation 6.02 through 6.14. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Is that you, Robert?
Robert,
Sorry.
second.
Beat me to the chase.
Jennifer, would you like to walk us through?
Absolutely. I do just want to make a couple notes because there was a change made so that you just know if the agenda doesn't look exactly the same. For 6.02, we did remove 6605 because that one still had to go through work session and it was crowdfunding that made the agenda. It's pulled now from the agenda that's online will be the one you're voting on. So when you're voting, I do not want you to vote on the first read of 6605. It's gone. So
Okay.
vote on the table, but not 6605 yet. We need to go back and do one more alignment before you do the first read. But those are all the policies that Lori referred to. It just scares me when she says only 2 more board meetings. Just being frank. But we'll get through it, and we'll do some more work session on policies on I think it's the 4th.
And 6605 is one of those policies where crowdfunding, as I think we've talked about, the administrative guidelines, the forms, all the different things that go together will come after because of the way the software works. But there are some policies that so lend themselves to having everything done at once that in those situations, we're pulling them so that those documents and those meetings can happen. So that even though we don't approve those, we know what's going to be in place when those are heavily referenced in the policies.
Certified personnel contracts, those should be pretty self-explanatory. We do well with those. Classified contracts. They're good. I want to make sure there's a lot of those. We're doing well with those. Don't know if it's on this one. I knew they were going to add. There's one I want to talk to you about, but I don't think it's on. Yes, it's on this one, Scott. Let me just talk a little bit because I don't know that we've gone in depth on this position.
What's
So,
number, Jennifer?
I think it's on 6.04 and it's on the back of my page. It's Scott Buchanan, the full-time custodian grounds worker.
Okay.
I just want to talk you through it because it's gonna answer a question that I've been asked a lot, and it's a safety question. So the question is, why is Officer Baldwin not at the stop sign anymore? Which is something that we've been talking about. And if you remember back in February when we were talking about school safety and trying to elevate what we do and give a sense of security at all the buildings and working through things, one of the things that we discussed is that stop sign in the morning the best place for our resource officer? And the answer really was no. So we decided to post a traffic director, if you will, position, but the hours were so small that we couldn't fill it, and we begged and we tried and nothing worked. But as the year progressed, we had other needs. So we developed the early learning village at Gurney. And let me tell you, if you have not been to the early learning village, you must go. I will be glad to take you on a tour. It is amazing. I just was there again on Monday. You have to visit, and I'll be happy to take you any day. It's beautiful. But with that said, that's additional square footage that has to be cleaned and cared for. And so there were some, how are we going to cover that? How do we do those things? There's also concern sometimes on shortages of just classified staff in general, where we don't have enough subs and coverage, and all those spaces have to be cleaned and cared for every night and every day, especially when students are in the building. And then we have grounds, just facilities in general. And sometimes, especially in the spring, when we're talking spring sports, there's more attention that needs to be taken because you have just like rain is the worst enemy for spring sports, sometimes snow. But there's just a lot of extra work that we have struggled with, plus add-on retirements. We have some retirements coming up. And so how do you take all that knowledge and expertise and prepare for coverage? And so we were able to sit down and, thank you, OPSI, work with them to be able to create a position where we could take that traffic need and combine it with other OPSI needs and create this position so that we can get that traffic back to what we want at the 712 campus and possibly like the IS when everything's done. And then also cover all these needs of the district. So you've had this kind of position before. It was before COVID, but it wasn't replaced. And Chris can give you all the history of that. But I think this position is the answer, and he will be trained by Officer Baldwin, not me, even though I think a band director can do a really good job at stop sign, they won't let me do it.
That and a flight attendant.
Yeah, and then a flight attendant, I think there's, but anyway, so I'm super excited to tell everyone, if you've been waiting for the traffic stop sign to work again, soon. And I'm really excited that we were finally able to get that position back to normal. So I know that was really long for one person, but the position is what's important, and I just wanted to draw that out. And then we go to certified personnel additional hours. I think that should all be self-explanatory. You're used to that, as well as this did change from I need to tell you this from an agenda that I think was posted. We removed a couple things because we're currently working with OPSI on what I would say supplemental or event pay, especially when an educational assistant might be needed for an after school or evening event to support a student. And we're trying to figure out what that looks like, because we struggle when especially someone is trained to help someone and then trying to make sure that they're paid correctly for maybe a Saturday night or there's some questions. So we want to make sure we're having those conversations now, and we might enter into an MOU at some point, hopefully soon. But I wanted to take the two items off this agenda just so that if we do an MOU, we wouldn't have to go back and correct things. So we just kind of clean that up a little bit if there's something that looks different. 607 is where we're at now. You'll see some resignation for purpose of retirement. 609 is supplemental pay. We have OHSAA, sorry. Those are the site managers. Co-curricular contract payments. Supplemental contract payments, and then the last one, there's an FMLA that's 14 to 13 I want to talk to you about, because that one went on real quick too. Just like I told you, we're working on supplementals. I'm calling it a supplemental, but it's not really a supplemental, but working on pay with OPSI for a couple things. An MOU is a memorandum of understanding. What happens is that when you have a contract and something comes up that's not really addressed in the contract, you get back with your union leadership and you talk about the issue. And once you figure out what the resolution is, then typically you put it in writing and both sides ratify it, right? And we say, in addition to the contract, we think this just needs to be put in writing so that we all follow it the same way. So when it says MOU, that's what that is. But this one is an interesting one. We want to make sure we talked about all the hard work that teachers do. And we need our teachers in certain circumstances to work after hours. And that's because we have students after hours, and the contract really didn't allocate a pay for when that happens. And there are certain times that we can't ask them to volunteer. We really need their help. And we had that situation and we didn't know how to pay them because the contract didn't allow for that, which I'm not sure why that wasn't. Usually it's embedded. So the union came together really quick with us. We talked it through, and that's what that MOU is for, to make sure that we can pay our staff for doing the work that they do. They deserve it. So that's what that MOU is for. So now I think I'm finished, unless there's questions, if I left something out.
I just want to say I appreciate that you are so thoughtful with these, when, as you said, are identified, like the need for staff to help cover a dance on a Saturday night because we're going to have students there. That your approach is very much doing what's right for our teachers and our staff, and making sure that they get compensated the way they deserve to. Just the spirit with which you've been bringing these things to us is just very well received by me as a board member. I think it's fantastic.
And just to be clear, it's for any dance in the district. It's not someone else who's just high school. It's not. We have teachers, we have dances across the district, but
yeah,
it's for every teacher that would be asked to do so.
And if we have situations that arise
This
Other
is
than
how it's
Manfred,
approached.
this is how yeah, okay. So we are still doing 6.02 through 6.14, is that correct? Okay. Any other questions or comments? Ashley, please take the roll.
Mrs. Bros,
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel,
Yes.
Mrs. Garvey,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller. Yes. Dr. Schlepper.
Yes.
All right, moving along to treasurer's recommendations. I move to approve treasurer's recommendation 7.02 through 7.06. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Mike. Ashley, would you like to walk us through these?
Yeah.
Do you want me to?
I'm sorry, who seconded that?
I do.
Okay.
Do you need this, Ashley?
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go slow.
Just do the candidate thing.
Yeah.
The other one.
Yeah.
Legal members.
It's the opening for the film fest, which is too bad. But it'll be, I think. it might
Do you know
be
what
last
time?
On the agenda. So it'll be.
So we could get the technology department to fix the orange on this screen. It drives me nuts.
Yeah, I know.
It's so ugly.
I noticed that.
And all my,
I don't even have it yet. Maybe 7.
on my screen, it's not bad.
Maybe
Okay.
7. So that's orange, eh?
Yeah, no, it is on the screen. This is the color of the presentation.
Mike,
This is
great. The pixels on our screen are not orange, they're yellow.
Sorry. Okay, so first item is the financial reports for the month of July. Because July is the first month of the fiscal year, this one I did include July and year to date, but some of these reports I didn't necessarily do that on the slides. The full reports are still on your agenda. That's what you're actually approving. This is just kind of pulling out the highlights. So that's why those numbers are exactly the same, because July is year to date for July. Okay, first off, general fund revenue. This compares to the prior 5 years. I struggled with whether or not I wanted to include that last year. Last year, I compared to the prior 4. I decided I'm going to go ahead and include 5. Struggling with shades of gray, so I apologize to anybody who is colorblind and can't see those. But I like to keep our current year visible, and that really put that forward so people know what they're looking at. It looks like our revenue for July is significantly higher than in the prior 2 years. That's not necessarily true. 1.7 of that $3.3 million is return of advances. So if you remember in June, we advanced out money for all of those federal funds. We're just giving it back. So in the system, it looks like revenue, just like it looked like expenditures in June wasn't really, it's not really revenue in July either. This is the general fund expenditures to the prior 5 years. Expenditures, I know that if you are only looking at those 3 bars, that looks a little concerning. I think a lot of that is timing on some of the payroll things. And then obviously we do have raises that take effect. So we will have, expenditures do increase year over year as inflation and all of those things happen, but it's not necessarily going to look like that for the entire fiscal year. Just like Jennifer.
Okay, just for clarification, that's Curtis's clicker.
Okay. Okay.
I was like, I'm taking enough of it.
So, okay, general fund cash balance. I chose on the cash to keep it at only 4 years because that one does get really convoluted with all those lines. I might try to find a better way to present that to you, but I do like to show how our cash year over year, month over month is a cycle and it's expected. So when we go from 1 month where it's our cash balance is really high to the next month where it's lower, that is expected, and that is just what happens with school finance. But I couldn't do a white line like I did with the with the revenue and expenditure, and I don't want to get too many lines on this because it does get a little crazy. So once that FY24 line gets added to there and we start going forward, you have another line, it might get a little too much. I might drop FY20 off of there. We'll see how it looks. Self-insurance fund, I did finally drop that first year off. I was for the first, from the inception of the self-insurance fund, just kind of showing what was happening now that we were established. I'm just going to keep a prior year in this report for you. So we're at about $2.3 million, very healthy, exactly what we want to see. Typically in July, we have large expenditures for a self-insurance fund. That's because we pay our own claims. People tend to hold off on procedures and things for the summer. So a lot of times you'll see that tick up. It did tick up a little bit, but didn't really affect the cash balance too much.
I think that's an important thing to point out. This isn't expenditures.
Mhm.
It's the cash balance.
Right. This is oh, I did not label that appropriately. I apologize. Yes, this is the cash balance of the self-insurance fund. I will fix that on the actual report that you're approving. It is clearer on there. I just kind of screenshotted that and threw it on the slide. I apologize. Oh my goodness. Curtis. He's not even here to defend himself. Okay. Next is the financial summary of all funds. I tried to kind of highlight for you at the bottom. I know this one has a lot of numbers on it. But for people who are interested in our funds other than the general fund, I do like to include it. Again, your July amounts are going to be the same as your year-to-date amounts because July is the only month in the fiscal year as of this point. But there you go. And then you see those, all those federal grant funds are back down to the negative because we're still waiting on some reimbursements from the federal. And since we sent that money back to the general fund, those are back to what the actual cash balance would look like in those grant funds down there, those 500 funds. This is the bank reconciliation for the month of July. Nothing too exciting on here. There's details there for you if you're interested. So the deposit investment report just shows where our money is, where we're holding it, and what those estimated yields are. Star Ohio is up over 5%, which is great. Those money markets are kind of holding strong right about now at about the 6.5. Those kind of stalled. Attached to the actual report that you are approving is the list of all of the investments that are in that U.S. Bank investment management account, the $10 million there. If you really want to look up all of the individual securities that are there.
And Ashley, can I ask you a
Yes.
question on that slide? With treasuries being up over 5%, can you talk a little bit about what we do to sort of maximize the return we're getting on these funds? I know there's limitations on where we can put what money. So
Yeah.
maybe if you could, talk about that for a minute.
So that US Bank account there, the second line where we have the 10 million, for the last several years, that was holding at 6. And I never really knew why. There wasn't a whole lot of reasoning that I could find in anything. I switched investment managers when I came in. I don't remember who they were using, but we switched to Red Tree, who is a little bit more hands-on, and they're the ones who manage those funds for us. They make suggestions on where it's going, what to buy, what's coming up. They keep an eye on that because as much as I am a finance person, I'm not that kind of finance person. So they're the experts. He wanted for a while, wanted us to put more money in there. Obviously he's like, you're holding all of this cash.
Mm-hmm.
So we looked at it, kind of looked at where we're going for the next few years, and with that cash, that line graph that I show all the time where our cash balance is, and decided that 10 million was probably a nice round number, good to put more money in there, make some more money. First couple of years we weren't making anything anyway. The rates were like, why bother? Right. So once the rates started to pick up, we kind of looked at that, and that was where we suggested. It was also a palatable change. We don't want to make a giant change and have people kind of look at this and think, oh my goodness, what are you doing? Then get ourselves into a situation where we're like really having to have somebody watch our cash balance, make sure we're liquid enough, make sure we have enough to cover payroll. I know treasurers who have been in situations where they didn't have enough cash to cover payroll. Not a good place to be. So we're really, I mean, we're fine. We could probably put more in there. I'm just being, conservative. But yeah, I meet with him periodically, and he receives our financial reports and our cash reconciliations on a regular basis. Just so he can kind of keep an eye on where we're at with all of our other funds, not just the 10 million. But yeah, I mean, all of that is to say, I trust Red Tree. They're the professionals. So yes, that we probably could put a little bit more in there, and we probably will. We just don't want to do it all at once.
Right. Great. Thank you.
Mhm.
And just that generally school districts are not able to just pick whatever fund.
Correct. Yeah. And that is the thing too. He manages, Red Tree manages, a lot of school districts across the state, and they're very aware of all the compliance requirements. He knows more about what we're allowed to do even than I do. And I spent 9 years in the auditor's office auditing those and making sure people were doing things right. Obviously, it was a very long time ago, but that's what he does. He did suggest when I first came that we started putting money in commercial. Actually, I will go to that report for you. Oh, no, I won't. It's on the actual reports that you're approving. I had to go to a specific training, which was silly because I'm like, I'm not really the one doing it. You're doing it. But I had to go to a specific training so that we could use the banker's acceptances. I did that. We got approved for that. And that's just another way for him to kind of make a little bit more money for us. But our options are very limited. Government securities is pretty much, if you look at that list of what we've got, it's government securities. You're going to see a lot of Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, those types of things. That's really all we can do.
Thank you.
Okay. So I kind of skipped the financial spotlight for June because I was covering the whole fiscal year. So I am back to the financial spotlight. This week with the report card coming out, I decided to make that the financial spotlight for this week's board report. This is a graph. I've used it for the last few years. I stole the idea from ODE. If you go out to their report card website, they will do something very similar to this. Theirs is interactive. It's really cool. If you hover over the dot, you can see who it is.
Right,
I don't have
to know what that other dot is.
I don't have the capability yet to do that. I have the data, so I can certainly give it anything, the data on here that you would like. But
It's a mic question.
if you go to theirs, it's a software money question. I just don't want to spend the money on it. But if you go out to their site, theirs is just a big blob of all the stuff in the middle because they take obviously the average. Those lines there are the averages. The vertical line is the expenditure per pupil average. The horizontal line is the average performance index score. Those lines are going to be somewhere else if you're looking at ODEs because they include the entire state. I pulled this out because it's just a big blob and it's not very useful if you don't have the hovering ability. And we don't necessarily compare ourselves to every district across the state. We don't necessarily care how we compare to a district that has nothing similar to us other than the fact that we're both in Ohio. So I pull the data for all of the Geauga and Cuyahoga schools because that's who most of our community kind of tends to compare us to is our neighbors. So I pull the data and recreate this on my own. So all of those blue dots represent Geauga and Cuyahoga schools. The orange dot clearly is us. So what I like to point out is how high at the top we are. So we're the third highest dot there, which is the third highest performance index score in those two counties where we know we're the fourth in the state. We just happen to have the highest three of the four highest performing schools are around here. It just is what it is. So I like to point out how high we are. And then when you're looking across, we're the third from the top. We're not the third from the top in spending. We are higher than average. And I think that's okay. I think we know that, we expect that. We do what we need to give our students the best education possible. And I think this demonstrates that we're doing a good job and we're doing it fiscally responsibly. If you're interested in pulling all of the data, I have the link there. That's also on the website on my financial little slides that kind of run on the website all the time. So if you're interested in creating your own, or if you're have something you want to compare to a specific district or anything like that, it's all there. If you want to check mine and see if you run it and it looks exactly like that, it better. Because I have all those numbers. So if anybody's interested in the detail, we've got it.
Yeah, it would be interesting to compare to the districts that we talked to that were around the state that we talked to with strategic planning. There might be some interesting things to see there.
I would imagine, and most of them were probably very similar. I could, if you want to give me, I know most of the names, but I don't think I know all of them. If you want to send me a list, I'm happy to recreate it just with that. Cause now that I've got the template, it took me a little while to figure out how to get it all how I want it, but now that I've got it, it's really easy. So that's it for the detail. In the actual reports that you are approving is a required report for the last fiscal year that I have to have board approved and sent down to the state for the bankers acceptances that we were talking about. The list is there if you want to look at it, if you're interested. But you're approving that as well tonight. I just it didn't fit nicely on a slide, and it looks like a bunch of gibberish that not too many people are interested in. So, okay. Any questions on the financial reports before I move on? Okay. Item 7.03 is then and now certificate. This was for, now that I've been looking far away, my eyes are not wanting to transition to close. Bob Summerall Tire, this was an invoice for $12,000. Invoice date was August 2nd. PO date didn't get in until September 13th. So I'm requesting approval of that. 7.4 is equipment disposal. The items on that list are all at Gurney. Some old tables and desks. I think there's a computer table, things like that on there that are taking up space, which we know is very limited in Gurney. They're not using them. They're not in the best shape. So they want to get rid of those.
Ashley, can you speak a little bit?
Absolutely.
To the state requirements for disposal of that? It's not just, we can't just willy-nilly decide what we want to get rid of or what to do with it when we do get rid of it.
So it's in our policy that we have to board approve. There are state requirements as far as disposing of real estate, not necessarily equipment. It's just good practice. It's helps us control for insurance purposes, for inventory purposes, controlling our assets and knowing where things are and who's got what where. It's good practice. Auditors would look at our procedures. They would test it as a control if they're, looking at those types of things. So equipment's not necessarily a state Ohio Revised Code requirement. Real estate certainly is. Equipment, it really is just good practice, and it's part of our policy. So we're to be in compliance with our own policy, we do it.
When we have equipment that is still in good condition, we have made it available to, like, for instance, with the building of the intermediate school, there was equipment that wasn't going to be appropriate for the new building, and there was a sale and a lot of we still continue that.
We do.
So what we dispose of is because it's damaged or not safe, or from a curriculum perspective, sometimes
it's not used.
Right.
So yeah, it used to be school districts would, at the end of every year, they'd have to find some place to hold all this unused equipment. Teachers would, on the last day of school, throw it out in the hallway. I mean, it was crazy. Every school district did this, and Robert's smiling because I'm sure his districts did the same thing. And then they would host like a sale or an auction, and people would come in, and it was like a physical sale. People would come in and there was cash exchanging hands. And in the last 15 years or so, everybody's gotten away from that. We've started to use online platforms. There are auction platforms that are specifically for schools that we all use. So yeah, if there's something large, certainly we do that. If it's, there are also requirements that we offer to community schools in the area. I don't have them all memorized on what all those requirements are, but certainly, you know, Chris and I look at those things anytime that there's something that is
Usable.
yeah, that's usable. We do it with books. We get rid of textbooks, not necessarily equipment. But when we're, you know, getting rid of textbooks, we offer them to, we have vendors who will buy them back if possible, if they're, you know, still of use. Not as much anymore because clearly we're not using physical books like we used to. But yeah, it depends on, you know, what you're getting rid of, what the status of it is, what the condition of it is. And is it, you know, typically if it's something we really need to get rid of and we don't want it, there's not a whole lot of other people who are going to want it. You know, we can't just set it on the curb for the pickers to come by, and that's creates a whole host of issues. So we do not do that.
So this list, is it available? If somebody were to look at this list and say, actually would like some of those things, would they contact you, or is this?
No,
Okay.
No, because they're approving.
if it's determined, if it's determined that it's going to be sold, then yes.
So these were already evaluated.
Yeah,
Not
they're
worth
not.
selling.
Mhm.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
think the villages would like it very much if we were putting our
Right.
desks out at the curb. It
Yes.
might be an image
Might be a
issue.
problem.
They use an online platform
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and the vendor, I can't think of what it is, but I know that the vendor that we use hosts for many school districts. And typically what's happening is other school districts are looking. Yeah. So if there's, you know, a lot of desks, and I don't mean a lot as in many, I mean a lot of a group of desks, for example, we sold some to like Beechwood or something a couple years ago, and they have their maintenance guys come and load them up on a truck and they take them away. So it really just depends on what the item is. Okay. Moving on to 7.05 donations. We have $1,200, which was the balance of the Gurney field trip for the Great Lakes Theater presentation from Carol Dolan, and EMOD donated new siding and trim on the Early Learning Village at a value of $40,000 and $40,049. So appreciate both of those generous donations. And then 7.06 is an MOU with OPSI. 2 or 3 contracts ago with OPSI, the district changed the structure of the health insurance. It used to be that all employees were able to get health insurance. That changed at that point in time when that contract was before my time, but I've seen the contract, which required that you work for the district an average of 30 hours a week in order to be able to obtain the full insurance. At that time, there was a caveat in the contract that legacied 3 individual people into coverage, regardless of what their hours were. Part of the reason for that is bus drivers are all contracted for 4 hours every year. And then depending on what route they get, they may or may not get those 2 extra hours. So they wanted to protect those 3 individuals. 2 of those individuals have moved on to different positions and they are now contracted for 6 hours anyway. So that caveat no longer applies to them. There was some, the language was kind of vague. So there were some conversations that we had to have with OPSI around it because the remaining member wants to she wants to be able to drop down to a 4-hour contract, not take those extra hours, but still needs coverage. So to make it very clear that was the person who was intended to, who happens to be the president of OPSI, that she was the person who was intended to be covered and to maintain coverage. If she drops down to 4 hours, she is still going to be covered on her insurance. She would have to pay a prorated rate. So the board would still, or she would still pay the employee portion, their employee percentage. Then the board percentage that you pay for full-time employees, that would then be prorated. So if she works half of the hours, she would pay half of the board's portion as well. So this is just to make it very clear that she's the one who is protected. It's over and done with. We're going to go with this, and that language in the old contract, which is not there in the new contract now, is no longer needed. We go with the MOU, and it's very clear. So that's all I have.
So the way I understand that, she is paying the difference, but we're allowing her to keep her healthcare coverage. But she's picking up the difference at the cost.
Yes.
So yeah, I think that's a win.
Yeah, the difference of the cost for the premium if
Right.
if she chooses to do that.
Right,
Because she was grandfathered under the
right.
original. Yeah.
So we're not paying any extra. We're just allowing her a benefit that,
Yeah,
you know,
she
she
had
had
under the
before.
contract.
Yeah.
There wasn't, when she was grandfathered, there was no paperwork. So now we have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in there and it was described. And I mean, I think we all kind of thought we understood the language. I was not at that table at that negotiation, so I don't know. It was to protect 3 specific individuals. And, you know, this just makes it very clear. This is the individual who is still protected, and we don't have to deal with this if they drop below this number of hours. And this, you know, if voluntarily elect a different contract, and it had a lot of language that I'm sure made sense at the time and defined those 3 people. Now it doesn't necessarily do that
How
anymore.
many years ago was it that you switched to the self-insurance?
The self-insurance, 2.5. No, I've only been here.
4.
I think 3.5, 3.5.
I think it's
Okay.
3.
I'll look. 2.5, 3.5. I don't know. It took me, I mean, I started
Do
here.
it right away.
Yeah, no, it took me a little while to get everybody on board, educate. I started May of 19 here. So I think it was probably January of 21,
Before COVID.
probably,
Wasn't it before COVID? Wasn't it before COVID?
maybe. No, January of 20 would have only been 6 months. Unless it was a really long 6 months in my head, which is
I
possible.
know that you've done a tremendous amount of work finding the past board members and the members of the new district who were at the bargaining table when that happened. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Any questions?
Actually, sorry, I just had a real quick comment. I just wanted to thank you for your level of dedication and the detail-oriented nature of this. I'm usually wildly impressed. I'm not a finance guy, but when I sit here and listen to how you break this down for us, it's really easy to look at the incredible academic achievements that we have, but I think sometimes we don't point out the work that you've done and just the incredible level of expertise. So I wanted to just look at the 4 awards that we've won this last year that you have brought to the table. We've won the Auditor of State Award with, I should say you have won the Auditor of State Award with distinction, the GFOA Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting, the Association of School Business Officials Certificate of Achievement in Financial Reporting, and then we've received 4 stars transparency rating, which is the Auditor of State's highest honor. So I just wanted to mention that again, that the financial solvency and the fact that we are in incredible hands. And I think we need to shed
All I do is
additional
report
light
it.
on that. Thank you.
All I do is report it. It really is. I
That's
mean,
true, you said that.
thank you. Team effort.
That's a great job.
Okay, please take the roll.
Mrs. Bros,
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel,
Yes.
Mrs. Garvey.
Yes.
Mrs. Miller.
Yes.
Dr. Schlepper.
Yes.
Another business, we need a special meeting. Are you prepared to?
The only thing, we don't have, you could have up to 3 MOUs, so we here, that's okay. They're all in different kinds of things, like, for example, Officer Baldwin's one that we just need to kind of get in place. It's all done now through legal, so they just need to go through the approval processes. The one I mentioned with OC. So I was just thinking, we have a meeting, the work session on, I think the 4th.
Yeah.
So maybe if we could just meet 15 minutes early and just meet a little early and do the MOUs, that's just, it's really close. That would give you time to get as many MOUs done as we needed. And we would just do those and then start the 5:30 meeting. And now we would
So meet at
try to
5,
schedule.
5:15. Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
So add a special
I'm,
at 5:15.
If we're okay.
I'm fine with that. Before we close out that conversation, I would like to not go into executive session for purposes of unemployment tonight and add a special meeting for the board to have an executive session around that topic. I think we need
On
to,
the fourth.
well, soon. So I was
Okay.
gonna propose, so I thought we could do it all together, but now that makes the meeting on the fourth. We're
Marathon.
back at the same problem. So can
If you want to do it at a special meeting, if you schedule, so I just think it's gonna be 3 hours.
okay.
So it'll be very short.
Yeah,
So we could,
I would like, yes, so let's still schedule.
so
a
let's still
special
do it.
meeting.
Yeah.
Is that work session at 5:30?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why was it at 5? It's
It's
usually
always
at
at
5,
5:30.
right?
No, they're usually 5:30.
It is usually 5.
Yeah.
So, but can we put a special meeting on the calendar sometime before the meeting on the fourth,
Just for executive.
just for executive?
Yeah.
session?
Are we gonna go into it at all tonight?
No,
Or add executive on the fourth.
well, but then the meeting gets long again and we're back in the same situation where we are tonight, where I'd like to have a meeting for the executive session topic that we have. I think it makes more sense. That's how we did it last year.
I just wonder if like a 5-minute might make sense just to get like a
No.
timeline or something. No?
Let's, in that meeting, we'll do all that.
Okay.
But we need to pick a meeting date.
So we're not gonna have executive session on the fourth. We might do that as well.
If Jennifer's contracts aren't ready by the date that we pick, then we can do the fourth as well, but. if
The MOUs. Yeah, okay.
The MOU, I'm supposed to get back from the villages on the 26th. But I just wanted to give myself a little bit of time with OC just to make sure that it's right, because I'd hate to ask for 2. You know what I'm saying? That's why I thought the 4th would just give us a little bit of a cushion to get those funds back.
Which is fine. Are people around if we have a special meeting at 5 o'clock on Monday, the 2nd?
I'm available.
Yes, I can do the second.
That's fine.
Lauren?
Yeah. I can make it work.
All right, so let's add a special meeting. Jennifer, do you think the 2nd would work for you to do your MOUs? So then we don't have to add another? Okay.
So then we'll add an executive session if we need it on the fourth as well.
So, no, we won't. So
Mm-mm.
she's gonna bring the MOUs. Well, can you make the 2nd, Jennifer?
Yeah, I mean, I know that I'll definitely have opposite policies. I mean, assuming that the councils, which is the one we need to get in place, and then if the other ones are done.
If-
Not, we'll just do it in October, which is fine.
Okay.
I'm fine with the
Okay.
making the 2nd the deadline.
So we just need one executive session, which will be on the 2nd.
Okay, so a special
Stands.
meeting on Monday, October 2nd at 5 PM for the purpose of approving MOUs and for executive session.
And for employment and whatever.
For
we're
executive,
scheduled for
whatever for
tonight.
tonight, just.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
In Sam's, I assume. Sam.
Can we, and can somebody make sure Sam's is
Assuming it's
available
open.
for us? Please,
I'll do that.
thank you. All right, so our next meeting is Monday, October 2nd at 5 o'clock PM. I move to adjourn. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Ashley, please take the roll.
Mrs. Bros,
Yes.
Mrs. Bendel,
Yes.
Mrs. Garvey,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Dr. Schleber.
Yes.
All right, thank you all.
Okay.